Alright, so I'm making this video because this is something I'm very passionate about. Now, if you know me, you know I love sports video games. I've really always loved them. I flip between, mainly sports video games and some like tower builders like Clash of Clans, but most of the time I've stuck to sports games whatsoever. I think the first real sports game I ever got into was the Madden Mobile franchise, um, which was back in the day a huge hit. I think I joined their inaugural year right at the end. Um, and then I really got into the Tap Sports baseball franchise, and soon I got into the Score franchise. And it's the Score franchise that I really want to talk about today. And it really boils down to the maker of the Score franchise, First Touch Games. What the heck happened to them? Now, if you don't know the history behind First Touch Games, that's perfectly okay. They're they're not your biggest company, right? They're they're relatively small when it comes to the gaming community. Like, they're not Epic Games, right? However, First Touch Games is notable for two series of really overall. Their Dream League Soccer series, which was a massive series, especially back in the classic days and right when it switched over to the current format of Dream League Soccer 16. Um, and the Score franchise, which started out with the game that I still play to this day of Score World Goals. So, what happened? Well, funny enough, the first game that First Touch Games ever made that's still up to this day, I think, is 8 Ball Pool. That was the only non-football game they ever made, to my knowledge. Now, what's funny about that is they then launched two games. I don't know which came first, but the first game that I remember seeing launched was Score World Goals. Now, what Score World Goals was and what it really set the platform for was what First Touch Games was really known for, which was simplistic gameplay and a knack for creating good I say football, soccer games, if you're American. They set the tone for this by doing something that no other game has done up to that point and no other game has done since. Recreating iconic moments in football or soccer history. I'm going to say football from now on, I'm not going to clarify. Well, this game was monumental for a couple of reasons. One, it set up what would later become one of the biggest franchises that's still up to this day in the Score franchise. What it also did was it set the platform for how people viewed First Touch Games, which was a very good company for making games that were easy to play, but also really flipping addictive, right? Now, the one thing that I think held Score World Goals back from becoming this massive franchise, right, is the fact that it's really time consuming if you don't spend money on it or didn't spend money on it, and it had licensing issues. Now, there were no actual names used in game, but if you were knowledgeable in soccer football history, you would know like a lot of these goals and a lot of the players who score them. And for a while, the Score franchise was just that, was just Score World Goals. And I don't think they ever really planned on expanding from it, because for them, Scoreboard Goals was a hit, and that was proven. They kept updating it. They were add new packs to it. I remember looking back on Twitter, and they added like a Leicester pack and a Liverpool pack and stuff like that. Just goals from these Premier League teams that you could go back and play, which unfortunately I was never around to see the light of that, and I also wasn't on Twitter at that time. So unfortunately, I never got to play any of those packs, but I've still played every single original pack to the game. And man, is it addicting. Like, currently, I think I'm on like a good 100-day streak of keeping up with it daily, which is ridiculous for me because I'm super inconsistent at doing anything. But alongside the Score franchise, they launched the Dream League Soccer franchise. Now, the Dream League Soccer franchise was different from the Score franchise in a couple of ways. One was licensing. They gained licensing to players. So it wasn't just numbers on a shirt anymore. It was you actually played with real players. The second thing that was monumental to it is it had more complex gameplay. It wasn't just draw a line to shoot, draw a line to pass. It was you had a joystick now. You had pass and shoot buttons now. All of a sudden, now you have lob pass buttons, and you have to time it with power and stuff like that. It was incredibly cool to see, and I was lucky enough to play the classic Dream League games, and man, was it such a blast. Like, if I could still go back and play those now, man, I would. However, they ended up moving on from the classic format. You had 2 years of the classic format, Dream League Soccer 14 and Dream League Soccer 15. After that, they changed to Dream League Soccer 16. And Dream League Soccer 16 was big for a couple of reasons. One, to my knowledge, it was the first game that First Touch Games had ever produced that had actual licensed music, which was incredibly cool at the time. Fun fact, one of my favorite songs ever, I believe it's Remember by Sunset Sons, I haven't listened to it in a while, came from that game. Like, the soundtrack was very well made. What was also really well made is they revamped the player acquisition system. However, along with that came the introduction of Score Hero. Now, Score Hero, if you haven't, is a great game, especially when it was first created. It has since fallen off a cliff, and I'll tell you why. The graphics. Now, the graphics aren't bad. They're quite good by mobile game standards. It's not necessarily the graphics I'm worried about. It's, I guess, would be more of an animation issue. Because what you had in Score World Goals and Dream League Soccer was a bunch of unique animations on running. You had like a wider stance of running, but you had also a more narrow, quick stepped stance of running. You had a variety. What happened was, over the years, they basically said, we can't do variety anymore. And right along the time they switched from Dream League Soccer 15 to Dream League Soccer 16, they stopped producing updates for Score World Goals. Now, Score World Goals was a very popular game, and it was really cool for people avid in football to see that, man, now we can go and play some of these iconic goals, but we can also go and play some of these goals that we really didn't know much about, and now we can go and play them. It was a really cool concept game. What happened was, and I don't know this for sure, I think they ran out of licensing issues. or licensing to like these goals, and all of a sudden now you had a game that couldn't have new goals. And I think around 2016 or 2017 it was taken off the Apple App Store, but remained on the Android App Store for a couple more months and then was taken off that. What happened then is you were completely reliant on two things: the Score Hero franchise and the Dream League Soccer franchise. Now, Dream League Soccer really started to fall off a cliff after about Dream League Soccer 18. It just became stale. There wasn't a lot of new content really added. It was the same format over and over and over again. And people that had once loved the game, I think, fell off of it, especially me, because there was no variety anymore. All these people had this goofy running animation where they were like lean forward at a 45-degree angle, taking steps every quarter of a second, and it was just like watching a man who like wasn't confident in taking a step running down the field. And so it was hard for me to see, and it really just drove me away from the game. So what did I fall back on? Well, Score Hero. Score Hero at that time was still amazing. And in 2019, 2020-ish, they came out with Score Match. Now, what Score Match was it was similar to... It mixed elements of Score Hero and Dream League Soccer. It took the team building aspects from Dream League Soccer and the gameplay aspects from Score Hero, and it created a great game. And I still think that Score Match is a great game to this day. If you haven't played it, I suggest playing it. It's hard once you get to the higher levels, but man, is it addictive at the lower levels, because it's quick gameplay. The games are maximum 2 minutes long. They end up lasting a little longer than 2 minutes. I will warn you, just because every time your player passes the ball, the clock stops. But you can get games as quick as maybe a minute, because the games are fast-paced, which is something that Dream League Soccer did not have. Dream League Soccer played full 90-minute matches. Now, granted, the clock was speeded up a lot, but you still were playing 90-minute matches. Score Hero, on the other hand, was moments. It was completely moments-based. It wasn't, you're playing this entire match. It was, snapshot moments, and it was addictive because, for one, it made you want more. The stamina system that they introduced made you want to play more, because it left you with a sense of longing of, well, I can't play anymore now because I've run out of stamina. What do I do next? However, what's happened in the past couple of years is Score Hero has fallen off a cliff. Score Match is still the same, but it's not as addicting as it once was. And now you have a new game that I will get to in a second. So what happened to Score Hero? Well, and the short end of the story is it was updated too much. And, like Dream League Soccer, the animations were slimmed down so much that it feels stale now. You've gotten better games, more addictive games since then. Like there was a football simulator that was moments based like Score Hero, but it took Score Hero's limitedness and expanded it to, you didn't have a stamina system anymore, and it added a level of challenge to where it was very puzzle based, where you suddenly had objectives to complete. Whereas Score Hero was just kind of like, score a goal. If you don't score it, oops, there's a life lost. If you do score it, congratulations! You get to move on to another level where it might be harder, might not. What ended up happening with Score Hero is you have streamlined the animations process, and you have taken the gameplay that was once so great, and you've taken it all away because you've taken away the stamina system. Like, you can pretty much play it forever now, and it's boring. Honestly, it really is. Like, what it used to be was a life system back in the day. Now I think, if I remember correctly, because I don't play the game anymore, it's like a true stamina system where it costs you stamina to play every level, and it just doesn't leave you with that same longing. Before it was like, man, I can't get this pass, I can't get this goal. I gotta come back and do it again. I want to get it done. Now it's just like, it's costing me to just play every match. There's, like, if I fail a goal, now it's costing me more. It doesn't leave you wanting anymore. Score match, honestly, has just become too pay to win. What you had with Score Match was an interesting, like, crate system where, it was very random based on how you played, and but it wasn't performance based. If it was performance based, the crate system would have been incredible in that game, and you would have seen a lot more people addicted to it. However, what you had was a bunch of people committing a ton of time to this game and performing really well and getting basic packages from it. By the way, basic packages are the lowest of the low. Like, you can't get any worse than it. It gives you basically nothing. You have a bunch of people playing really well in this game, but they're getting no rewards from it, and it basically doesn't make you want to come back and play. So, what do they fall in now? The Dream League Soccer franchise has fallen off a cliff. It's not what it once was. The Score Hero franchise is still popular, but it's nowhere near as popular as when its inception came. And Score Matches has become too pay to win. So what do you come up with? Ultimate Clash Soccer, the newest game on the block. What's it gonna be? Boring gameplay, streamlined animations, basically no effort put into it. Yes, you have licensed players, but, like, Score Hero still doesn't have licensed players. That's part of the problem. You don't have licensed players in Score Hero. You play with the actual teams. You don't play with licensed players. You have licenses. We know you have licenses for such games. It's evidenced by the fact that you have licenses for Ultimate Clash Soccer and Dream League Soccer. They don't have it in Score Match. It's more made up names, but you don't have licenses for any of that. So you're playing with just numbers on the back again. And by the way, if you're wondering whether old Dream League Soccer had licenses, no, it didn't. And I think that's what its downfall was. Like, that it definitely attributed to the fact that you're playing as yourself, but all the people around you are just characters with a number on their back. There's no personality to it. And so now you have Ultimate Clash Soccer, and licenses are back. There's finally another game with licensed players. Ain't that great? It's basically the same as what PES has become. And the original football gamers know exactly what PES is, And I'll do a separate video on PES. But now it's like, now PES is eFootball, and it sucks. And this has more interactive gameplay than eFootball, but it still sucks. Yes, you're using licensed players, but I can go to FIFA and play with licensed players and have a better time. The gameplay was too confusing, and it ended up being a complete flop because you've rushed a bunch of games. If First Touch really wants their following back, they need to do a couple of things. One, stop being lazy with the animations. Now the animations, I'm sure aren't a big deal for everyone, but they sure were for me. Because I like seeing life and how the players play. It's similar. It's not undifferent to why it's hard to play NHL for me now, in the fact that in NHL 15 for the Xbox 360, the Xbox One sucks. There wasn't a lot of different skating styles, but there were enough to make it like, ooh, this one player has a unique skating style. It's kind of fun to use. It's kind of goofy, but it's kind of fun to use. Now, you basically have two skating styles in NHL 23, 8 years after NHL 15. What happened? And by the way, I haven't gotten 24 yet, and 25 is Xbox Series X exclusive. And I don't have an Xbox Series X because that is expensive. So, what's next for First Touch? Scrap it all. Scrap it all. Come up. I don't care if you reuse Score Hero, but stop being lazy with the animations. Put licensed players in Score Hero. If you really want to gain a following back, make an announcement saying licensed players are coming to Score Hero. You will gain a massive following from it. Because all of a sudden, now you're not just playing with some random characters on a screen. Now you're playing with actual players. Now, instead of just try and force feed it to your own character, it's, well, I can score with all these other people, and it'll actually show up as names and people I recognize. That would be a massive step to regaining what you had with that franchise. Dream League Soccer, stop being lazy with the animation, revamp the gameplay. It's become too stale. It's the same format that you've had for over 10 years now. Now, for games like FIFA, that might work, but FIFA's actually made innovations. FIFA used to be similar in a lot of ways to for Dream League Soccer. It was more which one you preferred. Now they have different ways to play. You can swipe to shoot. You can use the buttons that was original to FIFA. But don't be lazy, and don't just revamp it all. Like, the only one that I would say does not really need revamping, at least not in the ways the others do, is Score Match. Scrap Ultimate Class Soccer. It's not a hit. It's worse than, honestly, 8-Ball Pool was, because, let's be honest, 8-Ball Pool by Miniclip is better. And when you've completely disenfranchised Score World Goals to the fact that even on your own website, you won't even acknowledge it. Like, if 8-Ball Pool is even still on the App Store, that's great and all. But that's not what you're known for. You're known for Dream League Soccer, which you've mentioned. You're known for Score Hero, which you've mentioned. Score Match, which you've mentioned. And Ultimate Clash Soccer? That's not what you're known for. You want people to be endeared to you? Mention score world goals. Bring back that fan base that you once had with score world goals that you've lost since then because you've completely erased it from your history. If you can, revamp score world goals. You will gain an entirely new following. You will gain old people like me. And I say I'm old, I'm 18. And but I've been playing that game since 2014. That was 11 years ago. I've been playing that game for a long time. I don't care if you just re-add it back to the App Store. You've had Dream League Soccer on the App Store for who knows how long. And not the original versions, but like if you really want an entire new following, if you want to revamp how people view you, bring back Score World Goals, revamp Score Hero, revamp Dream League Soccer. Go back to your roots because that's what people loved about you. That's where you were at your peak, was when you were coming up and being innovative. Now you've relaunched Score Hero about 5 different times. You're on what? Season 11 of Dream League Soccer? Season 11, season 12? Because you started in 2014 with Dream League Soccer. So either come up with something new and go back to your roots, or redo what you already know is successful in Score Hero, Dream League Soccer, Score World Goals even. Redo what you know is successful, but revamp it. I would love to see Score World Goals back again. I can't say that enough. It's really that good of a game. Because when you get to see like goals that you know happened in real life and you get to recreate it in different ways, that was one of the coolest things about Score World Goals, is that yes, you recreated the goals, but they also had a bonus section where they redid the goals and completely revamped them to make them feel fresh again. Do that again. The bottom line is, for such games, I hate to say it, you've become old. You're not what you once were. Go back to your roots, man. Go back to what people loved. You will gain more respect than you ever know, and you will gain an entirely new following that you've forgotten that you've had. That is all I have to say.